The stars burned bright above the giant arena. Across the galaxy, ships of every size floated near the station, bringing crowds from thousands of worlds. It was the night of the contest of resolve, a test of strength, endurance, and spirit. Alien tribes, rulers, and wanderers all came to watch. The arena itself was massive, like a hollow moon. Inside, bright lights shone over a stage where the strongest warriors of the universe had gathered. Giants with 4 arms, armored creatures with burning eyes, and winged hunters lined up proudly, waiting to prove themselves. The announcer's voice thundered across the hall. Tonight the contest begins. The last one standing will gain honor, riches, and the right to lead among the stars. The crowd roared in excitement. Everyone's eyes searched for the next great champion. But then, something strange happened. A small figure stepped onto the stage. It was not a giant, not a monster, not a warrior with blades or claws. It was a girl, tiny, fragile, with glowing eyes and skin as pale as silver. She wore a simple outfit that looked more like a child's costume than battle armor. Compared to the huge beasts around her, she looked like a child who had walked into the wrong place. The arena fell silent for a moment. And then the laughter began. "Look at her," shouted one alien. "She can't even reach my knees," laughed another. "What is this, a joke? A child's play?" The little girl lowered her head, her hands trembling. She was from a small species almost forgotten by the galaxy. Her people had no armies, no fleets, no legends. To the mighty, they were nothing. She had come hoping for a chance, but now the crowd mocked her, louder and louder. The announcer shook his head, almost embarrassed. "Child, this contest is not for you. Do you even know the rule? It is simple. Raise your hand and hold it high. The last one with their hand in the air wins. But the test is not as easy as it sounds. This is a battle of pain, will, and unbroken resolve. Can you even last a minute?" The girl's heart pounded. She wanted to be strong. She wanted to prove her people were not weak. So with a shaky breath, she lifted her small hand into the air. The crowd howled with laughter. Some even turned away, not bothering to watch, but then another figure stepped forward. A human. He was tall compared to her, but still small compared to the monstrous aliens in the arena. His clothes were simple, plain, nothing like the glowing armor or spiked suits of the others. His eyes were calm, steady. Without saying a word, he raised his own hand into the air. The arena grew quiet. For the first time that night, the laughter stopped. The little alien girl looked at him in shock. No one had defended her. No one had cared. Yet here was a stranger, a human, standing beside her. His face showed no fear, no hesitation, only silence and a strange strength. "Another fool enters?" One alien scoffed. "Humans? Weak, short-lived creatures. They don't belong here. This is a waste of time. Both of them will fall first." But the human did not move. His hand stayed raised. His eyes stayed forward. The girl whispered, barely able to speak. Why would you do this?" The man finally answered, his voice calm and quiet, but strong enough to carry through the silence. "Because no one else would." The crowd murmured, unsure how to respond. Some laughed again, though softer this time. Others frowned, watching carefully. Something felt different now. The announcer cleared his throat. "Very well. The contest begins. Raise your hands and prepare." One by one, the warriors lifted their arms. Some glowed with power. Some covered their arms in shields of energy. Some shouted war cries that shook the walls. But among them stood 2 simple figures, the fragile girl and the quiet human. The first wave of energy struck. It was invisible but powerful. Gravity grew heavier. The air turned sharp and hot. Already some warriors groaned. The girl winced, nearly dropping her hand, but she looked sideways and saw the human. He did not flinch. His arm stayed high, steady as a mountain. Her small chest rose and fell. Slowly she lifted her chin higher. She refused to drop her hand. The crowd leaned in. The laughter was quieter now. Something about the human unsettled them. Why did he not fear? Why did he not shake? And deep in the shadows of the high seats, alien nobles whispered, "Who is this human? He should not last even 1 round. Keep watch. Something is wrong here." The contest had only begun, yet already the night felt different. The universe had seen thousands of warriors fall in this arena, but tonight, something new had arrived, not with fire, not with weapons, but with a small girl and a human hand that refused to fall. The arena was alive with noise. Heavy footsteps of armored beasts shook the ground. Flames, claws, and strange weapons glowed around the stage. The contest of resolve had truly begun. Yet among all the giants, two figures stood out: the small alien girl with trembling fingers, and the human who had silently raised his hand beside her. The crowd still mocked, but their laughter was uneasy now. Some aliens hissed in anger, others whispered to each other. They had seen humans before, yes, but never in a contest like this. The girl's hand shook as the energy waves pressed down on her small body. The force was growing stronger. Sweat rolled down her pale skin, her legs nearly gave out. She wanted to fall, to escape the endless eyes staring at her. But when she turned her head, she saw him. The human. His face was calm, his arms steady. He did not look at the crowd. He did not look at the giants beside him. He only looked forward, his hand raised like stone against the storm. For a moment, the girl forgot her own pain. There was something strange about him, something quiet but powerful. She whispered again, "Why do you do this? You don't know me. You don't even know my name." The human's lips curved in the smallest smile. His voice was low yet firm. "I don't need to know your name. I only know what I saw." They laughed. "And no one stood with you, so I did." The words were simple, but they struck her like lightning. No one had ever said such a thing to her before. She had always been alone, small, ignored, but now, not anymore. The announcer's voice boomed. "Warriors, the first round has begun. Gravity will triple. Only the strong will remain." The ground pulled harder, pressing bodies down. Some warriors bent under the weight, roaring in defiance. A few fell quickly, their arms dropping to their sides. The crowd cheered at every failure. The girl gasped. Her knees nearly buckled, her hand shook wildly. She thought it was the end. Then she heard the human's voice again, quiet but sharp as steel. "Stand," her heart raced. She forced her legs to lock in place. The pain was sharp, but she refused to lower her arm. Not while he still stood. Minutes dragged like hours. The air grew hotter, heavy like burning metal. Some warriors shouted, some cursed, some collapsed. Yet the human never moved. His hand was high, his breathing steady, his eyes locked on the invisible horizon. The girl stared at him with wide eyes. His silence was louder than the roars of the crowd. It was as if his will alone filled the arena. Above them, in the golden seats, alien nobles watched closely. One, a tall figure with cold eyes and jeweled armor, leaned forward. "This is unusual," he hissed. "A human? They are fragile. They are short-lived. Yet he does not waver." Another noble sneered. "It is only the first round. Soon he will break. They always break." But the tall figure shook his head. "No, this one is different. Watch him." Back on the stage, the girl felt her strength fading again. Her small hand ached, her body screamed to give up. Tears burned in her eyes. She wanted to cry. But then she heard laughter from the crowd. Not just at her, but at the human, too. Look at the little pair. A weakling child and her pet human. "They will fall next, I promise you." The girl's tears stopped. Her chest burned, but not with weakness, with anger. For the first time in her life, she did not feel completely powerless. Because beside her was someone who refused to bow even when mocked. The announcer's voice echoed again. "Second round begins. Mental strikes activated." A new wave of energy filled the arena. This one was cruel. It did not push the body, it attacked the mind. Visions of fear and pain clawed into every warrior's thoughts. The girl cried out, seeing images of her world burning, her family fading away. Her knees hit the floor. She almost dropped her arm, but she looked up at the human. His face was calm, but sweat rolled down his temple. His jaw was tight, his eyes narrowed. He too saw the illusions, but he did not lower his hand. The girl's voice shook. How do you keep standing?" The human's reply was heavy but steady. "I have seen worse. I have lived through worse. This is nothing." His words were like fire in her chest. Slowly, painfully, she forced herself up again. Her hand stayed in the air. The crowd gasped. First they had laughed. Now they stared. No one had expected the girl to rise again. No one had expected the human to still be standing. Minutes turned into an hour. One by one, mighty warriors fell. Beasts with claws, kings with crowns, hunters with wings. They all dropped their arms, but two figures remained. The smallest of them all, a little alien girl, her body shaking but her hand still high, and the human, silent and unbroken, standing like a mountain against the storm. The arena was no longer filled with laughter. Now it was filled with silence. The tall noble in the golden seat leaned back, his eyes sharp. "This human is dangerous," he whispered. And the girl, though trembling, thought the same thing, but not with fear. With hope. For the first time in her life, she was not alone. The arena lights dimmed and the crowd hushed. The first 2 rounds had already shocked everyone. Strong warriors had fallen. Monsters with skin like stone had dropped to their knees. And yet the fragile girl and the quiet human still stood with their hands in the air. Whispers spread through the audience like fire. Impossible. Trickery. They should not still be standing. The announcer's booming voice cut through the noise. Round 3. "Begins now!" A deep rumble shook the stage. The floor cracked, releasing streams of heat. This round was called the Trial of Pain. It was the round that broke even the greatest champions. The rules were cruel. Each warrior would feel the burn of invisible fire on their skin. The longer they held their hand up, the more the pain grew. There was no shield, no escape, only raw endurance. The first screams came quickly. A horned beast roared as his skin blistered and his massive hand fell to his side. Another warrior with metal arms crumbled to his knees, sparks bursting from his joints. The crowd cheered at their defeat, but when they looked to the small alien girl, the laughter returned. She shook violently. Her silver skin burned red, her tiny frame trembling under the invisible heat. She bit her lip so hard it bled. Her hand wavered in the air like a leaf in the wind. The audience pointed, ready to see her collapse. She's done. She'll fall any second. But the girl's wide eyes turned toward the human. He stood silent, his arm high, his body tense but unbroken. His face twisted slightly with pain, but he did not scream. He did not bend. He did not give the crowd the satisfaction of weakness. The girl swallowed her cries. Her small body wanted to give up, but her heart whispered, "If he can stand, then so can I." She clenched her jaw and forced her hand higher. The crowd gasped. Impossible. The child still resists. And the human, he is insane. From the high balcony, the alien nobles leaned forward. Their jeweled faces glistened under the arena lights. One hissed to the others, "This human, he is dangerous. He changes the game," another sneered. "It is only pain. Soon his flesh will break." But the tall noble with the cold eyes whispered, "No, his pain is strength. Watch him carefully." Down below, the heat grew worse. The girl's knees shook violently. Her vision blurred. She tasted blood on her tongue. Every second felt like an eternity. She wanted to cry out, to ask why this mattered, why she had ever stepped into the contest. But when she looked at the human, she saw something terrifying and beautiful. His eyes, they burned with memories unseen, pain far older than this arena. His silence spoke louder than any scream. It was as if he had carried heavy burdens long before this night, and this trial was nothing compared to them. The girl's voice trembled. "Why do you keep going? Why do you not fall?" For the first time, the human turned his head toward her. His voice was quiet, yet it echoed through her heart. "Because pain only matters if you let it win." Her breath caught. The words lit a fire inside her small chest. She gritted her teeth, straightened her legs, and raised her hand higher, ignoring the tears running down her face. The crowd stared in stunned silence. One by one, the mighty continued to fall. Warriors who had been praised as gods collapsed. The arena floor was littered with the defeated. And still, the smallest girl and the stubborn human remained. Hours passed like days. The heat gnawed at their flesh. The air felt like knives. The girl swayed, almost falling again. And then something happened. The announcer frowned. The readings on his panel glitched. The pain levels were climbing far faster than usual. Someone was tampering with the trial. Up in the shadows, the nobles whispered, "Raise the pressure. Crush them. Break their spirits before the crowd. They cannot be allowed to win." The heat grew unbearable. The girl screamed, her voice sharp and broken. The human's body trembled for the first time. Blood ran from his nose. His arm shook violently. The audience gasped. "Finally! He will fall." But the human's lips parted, and through the storm of pain he spoke. "Stand." The girl's scream stopped. Her tears still fell, but her hand did not. She stood, her small figure glowing under the arena lights, her spirit refusing to bend. The crowd no longer laughed. Some were silent. Some whispered in awe. Others cheered, not for the giants, but for the two who should have fallen long ago. The tall noble clenched his fist. This is wrong. That human is breaking the game. Another noble hissed, if he survives this round, we must act. The galaxy cannot see a weakling become a symbol. Back on the stage, the human's vision blurred. Shadows moved at the edge of his sight. His arm screamed with pain. His whole body demanded release, but he remembered. He remembered Earth, the wars, the hunger, the endless nights of survival. He remembered loss. He remembered promises that could not be broken. His arm stayed high, and beside him the girl whispered with shaking lips, if you don't fall, then I won't either. The crowd erupted, not in laughter but in thunderous cheers. For the first time in history, the smallest had become the strongest. And in the shadows, the nobles plotted their next move, because the contest was no longer just a game. It had become a battle for power, for fear, and for the truth of what a human could endure. The arena floor was littered with fallen champions. Broken claws, shattered armor, and silent bodies lay scattered across the stage. Only a few warriors still stood, their hands trembling in the air, but two figures shone brighter than all the rest. The little alien girl, her silver skin streaked with sweat and blood, and the human, his arm steady like a pillar of iron. The crowd no longer laughed. Their voices had changed. Some whispered in disbelief, some shouted in awe, and some for the first time cheered. Look at them, the smallest one and the human. They stand longer than beasts twice their size. This is not a contest anymore, it is history. Yet far above the cheers in the shadowed balcony of the nobles, the mood was not admiration. It was fear. Behind golden masks and jeweled robes, the galaxy's rulers watched with cold eyes. They had created the contest of resolve to control the masses, to show that only the strongest deserved respect. But this night was different. A fragile girl and a human, creatures mocked as weak, were stealing the stage. The tall noble, the one with cold, burning eyes, leaned forward. His voice was like a blade. This cannot continue. If they last another round, the people will see weakness as strength. The order will break, another noble hissed in agreement. The child is nothing. Crush her spirit. Let her fail publicly. A third added, his jeweled fingers tapping the railing. And the human, he is the true danger. His silence is louder than thunder. He does not bow. If he endures, our power weakens. The people will question us. The tall noble's gaze darkened. Then it is decided. They must fall, not by chance, but by force. A hush filled the chamber. No one dared speak against him. But in the shadows below the balcony, the little alien girl had slipped into a corner during the short rest break between rounds. She had gone searching for water, her body trembling with exhaustion. That was when she heard them. Her wide eyes grew wider as their whispers reached her. Every word struck like a dagger. They were planning to cheat. They were planning to destroy her. And him, her small heart raced. She pressed a hand to her chest, fighting the panic. Should she run? Should she tell the human? No. If she told him, maybe he would give up. Maybe he would leave to protect her. And she did not want that. For the first time in her life, someone stood beside her. For the first time, she was not invisible. She could not let fear steal that away. She clenched her fists, whispering to herself, No, I will not break. Not now, not with him watching. The horns blared. The announcer's voice echoed again. Warriors, prepare. The next round begins. The girl hurried back to the stage, her body weak, but her spirit burning stronger than ever. She looked at the human. His face was pale, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. Yet when he glanced at her, his gaze was steady, unshaken. You're still here, he said quietly. She nodded, though her throat felt tight. Yes, and I will not fall. He gave her a rare, small smile. Good, the crowd roared as the floor glowed with new symbols. Strange patterns spread across the stage, pulsing with dark energy. The next trial was beginning. From the noble balcony, hidden machines were activated. Invisible waves rippled through the arena, stronger and sharper than before. This was no longer part of the contest. This was betrayal. The girl felt it instantly. Her small chest burned, her vision twisted. The illusions were worse now. Shadows with claws, voices whispering her failures. She stumbled, almost dropping her hand. The human felt it too. His teeth clenched. His body shook harder than before. Something unnatural was happening. This was not the normal trial. Yet he did not lower his arm. The girl glanced at him, fear in her eyes. She wanted to tell him the truth, that the nobles had decided to destroy them. But when she saw his hand still raised, his jaw locked tight, she swallowed the words. If he could stand against this storm without knowing, then she would stand too. The crowd sensed something strange. Many began to shout, "This round is too strong. They are pushing it beyond the rules. Something is wrong." But the announcer ignored them. The game continued. The girl's body screamed in pain. She could barely breathe. But she remembered the human's words. Pain only matters if you let it win. She bit her lip until it bled and kept her hand in the air. The human's arm shook violently now, blood dripping from his fingers. His vision blurred into blackness, but he forced his body to obey. He would not fall. Not while she still stood beside him. The nobles watched with cold smiles. They expected collapse, but what they saw instead was terrifying. Two figures, one small, one human, still standing against the impossible. The tall noble's voice was like poison. "If they survive this, we must take further steps. They will not leave this arena alive." Back on the stage, the girl turned her head and whispered through clenched teeth, "They want us to fail, but we won't, not you, not me." The human glanced at her, his voice low but unbreakable. "Then let them watch." The round continued, and the crowd's cheers grew louder than ever before. Not for the nobles, not for the giants, but for a tiny alien girl and a human whose hand still refused to fall. The arena was no longer filled with laughter. It was filled with thunder. The voices of thousands shook the walls as the crowd screamed for the impossible pair, the fragile alien girl and the silent human who refused to fall. But the nobles in the balcony did not cheer. Their jeweled faces were dark with anger. Their whispers were sharp as knives. They should not still stand. This is a disgrace to the contest. If the people see this as strength, everything we built will crumble. The tall noble with the cold eyes gave a signal. Hidden machines deep below the arena roared to life. The announcer raised his voice. "Round 5. Begins now." The floor glowed red. The air turned heavy and sharp like breathing fire. The trial of the flesh had begun. This round was crueler than all before. Waves of invisible energy stabbed at every nerve, every muscle, every bone. It was not just weight or illusion. It was real pain, sharp and endless, as if the body was tearing itself apart from the inside. The girl screamed. Her small body collapsed to her knees, though her hand was still raised. Blood dripped from her nose, her eyes burned with tears. She wanted to quit. She wanted it to end. The crowd winced. Even hardened warriors in the seats looked away. The pain was too much for such a fragile creature. But then, she heard his voice. Stand, her head jerked up. The human stood tall, though his arm trembled violently. His body was shaking, blood streaked down his temple, but his voice was steady. "Stand. Don't give them what they want." The girl's chest heaved. She tried to rise, her small legs buckling under her. She pushed again, using every drop of strength. Slowly, painfully, she rose to her feet. The crowd erupted. She was not strong. She was not mighty. But she was still standing. The nobles leaned forward in anger. The tall one hissed, "Raise the power. Break them both." The machine surged. The pain grew worse, stabbing like fire through every vein. Warriors who had still been standing collapsed in waves. Huge beasts roared, kings cried out, hunters dropped with their wings folded. But the human did not fall. His arm shook like it would snap, his teeth clenched until blood filled his mouth. His legs wobbled, but his eyes burned with something deeper than pain. The girl looked at him with wide, desperate eyes. How do you keep going?" For a moment the human did not answer. His breath was ragged, his body close to breaking. Then his voice came low and heavy. "Because I have lived through worse." The girl's heart pounded. His words struck harder than the pain. What could be worse than this? She wanted to ask, but before she could, the human's mind drifted. For the first time, the contest showed him not illusions, but memories. He saw Earth. He saw war. Cities burning. Smoke covering the skies. The cries of the lost. He saw comrades fall beside him, people who had trusted him. He saw hunger, cold nights, and promises he had made to those who never lived to see another sunrise. The pain of the arena was nothing compared to the pain of watching his world suffer. Nothing compared to the weight of those memories, and so he stood. The girl stared at him, sensing his silence was not just strength, it was grief, deep and endless. Her small hand shook, but she raised it higher. She would not let him carry the weight alone. The crowd grew restless. They had expected to see blood, defeat, collapse. Instead, they saw defiance. They saw a human who carried invisible scars and a tiny girl who refused to abandon him. The announcer's voice shook. Even he seemed uncertain now. Warriors, remain if you can. This is the final stage of round 5. The machines pushed to their limit. The ground cracked. Sparks of energy exploded from the floor. The pain grew unbearable. The girl screamed again, her legs folding. Her hand nearly dropped. The crowd gasped, ready for the end. But the human turned his head, his voice sharp and filled with fire. Don't fall. She looked at him, her vision blurred by tears. His arm was still raised, though it trembled like it would break off. His body was breaking, but his will was not. The girl clenched her teeth. She rose again. Slowly, painfully, she forced her legs to lock. Her hand stayed in the air. The arena exploded in cheers. The nobles sat frozen in fury. The tall one slammed his fist against the railing. Enough! If this human does not fall soon, the galaxy will never forget this night. We must end him. But the human did not hear their whispers. He only heard the sound of his own heartbeat, steady and strong, and the small voice of the girl beside him. She whispered through the storm, "If you don't give up, then neither will I." The human closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded once. The round ended with a thunderous blast of horns. Most of the stage was empty now. The great champions had fallen. Only 2 figures remained, bloodied, broken, but still standing. A little alien girl, and a human who had carried the weight of the world and still refused to let his hand fall. The crowd's roar shook the arena. The noble's fury burned like fire, and the legend of the breaking point had just begun. The horns blared, and the lights above the arena shifted to a dark crimson glow. The air itself felt heavier, colder, alive with unseen claws. The crowd leaned forward, thousands of eyes fixed on the stage. Only 2 figures still stood. A little alien girl, pale and trembling, and the human who raised his hand hours ago and never lowered it. Their bodies were broken, their faces streaked with blood and sweat. Yet still they endured. The announcer's voice echoed, though even he sounded uncertain now. Round 6 begins. At once silence fell across the arena. No fire, no heat, no crushing gravity. This round was different. It attacked not the body but the mind. The shadows moved. Illusions crept in. The girl gasped as the world twisted around her. She saw her homeworld burning. She saw her people running in terror, their small bodies crushed by giant machines. She heard her mother's voice screaming her name, fading into silence. Her hand shook violently. She wanted to cover her ears, to hide her eyes, but she remembered the human beside her. She forced herself to stay standing. The human, too, was drowning in visions. He saw Earth again, not the peaceful blue planet, but a world in flames. Cities crumbled, people he once loved reaching for him, begging for help he could not give. He saw graves, promises broken, and the faces of the dead. The illusions whispered in his mind. You failed. You always fail. Drop your hand, fall, end it. His arm shook, blood dripping from his fingertips. His jaw tightened until it hurt. His eyes burned with shadows, but he did not answer the illusions. He did not argue. He only endured. The girl turned her head, tears streaming down her face. Through her fear, she whispered, Why don't you speak? Why don't you fight them?" The human's voice came at last, low and steady, though his lips trembled. Because words give them power. Silence takes it away. The girl's heart pounded. His silence was not emptiness, it was defiance. Every second he stood without bowing was louder than any scream. She wiped her tears roughly. If he could face his ghosts without a sound, then she would too. The crowd was uneasy now. They had seen warriors scream, roar, and curse in this round before. But this human made no sound at all. His silence was terrifying. His silence made them believe. One alien in the seats whispered, "He does not fight with fists. He fights with will." Another murmured, "He does not even need to win. He already has." But in the noble balcony, rage boiled. This cannot be allowed. Look at the people. They are cheering him. The contest is slipping from our control. The tall noble leaned forward, his cold eyes narrowing. Then we must destroy him now. If the illusions cannot break him, make them stronger. Dig into his soul. Tear apart what is left of him. The hidden machines roared again. The shadows deepened. The human staggered, his knees nearly buckling. He saw not just Earth's war, but himself, alone, forgotten, carrying guilt so heavy it crushed his chest. His arm dropped lower. The crowd gasped. The girl screamed, "No!" She stumbled closer to him, her small body shaking, her hand still raised. She looked up at him, her eyes blazing through the tears. "You are not alone. Not anymore. Do you hear me?" Her voice echoed across the silent arena. For the first time, she was not speaking small or timid. She shouted, her words filled with fire. The human's eyes flicked toward her. For a moment, the illusions cracked. He saw her standing beside him, her hand trembling but still high. A fragile girl, yet unbroken. Something inside him shifted, he straightened. His arm rose again, steady despite the blood. His silence returned, stronger than ever. The crowd erupted in thunderous cheers. It was no longer just awe, it was rebellion. They shouted for the girl. They shouted for the human. And their voices shook the arena. The nobles froze. They had lost the people. Down below, the girl felt something stir inside her. A warmth in her chest, deep and ancient. Her small body glowed faintly with light. For the first time, she felt power. Not from the contest, not from the nobles, but from herself. She whispered almost in disbelief, I can feel it." The human turned his head slightly, his voice calm even as his body bled. "Then hold it. Don't let it go." Her glow spread brighter, her strength renewed. The shadows shrieked around her, but they could not touch her anymore. The nobles watched in horror. One hissed, "What is happening to the child?" Another growled, "She is awakening. Stop her, stop them both before it is too late." But it was already too late. The little alien girl and the silent human stood side by side, their hands high, their will unbroken. The illusions shattered like glass around them. The crowd roared so loud it shook the walls. Not for power, not for the nobles, not for the giants, but for two who refused to bow. In the balcony, the tall noble clenched his fists. His voice was poison. "They think they are winning. But before this night ends, I will break them both." The human did not look up. The girl did not look back. Together they stood in defiance, silent, glowing, unbroken. The arena was chaos. The crowd no longer belonged to the nobles. Their roars shook the air, chanting for the smallest alien girl and the human who refused to fall. Down on the stage, their bodies were broken, their arms streaked with blood, but still they stood, hands raised, eyes steady. The girl glowed faintly with new power. The human's silence was stronger than steel. The announcer's voice cracked. He had never seen anything like this. Round 7, the final trial, begins now. The floor shook violently. The sky above the arena split open with lightning. Energy poured down in storms of fire and shadow. This was not a test anymore, it was a weapon. The nobles had twisted the last round into destruction. The girl gasped as the storm slammed into her. Her tiny frame bent under the weight of the energy. Pain clawed through her bones. Her knees trembled, ready to give way. The human staggered too, his vision blurred, his body broken from hours of torture. Blood ran down his arm. His raised hand shook wildly. The storm tried to crush him into the floor. The nobles leaned forward, their voices sharp with hate. This is the end. They cannot survive this. Crush them before the galaxy believes in them. But the crowd shouted louder, drowning out the nobles. "Stand! Don't fall! Hold it, hold it!" The girl's tears streamed down her face. She wanted to give up, but she saw him beside her. The human, trembling, bleeding, yet still standing. His lips did not move. His silence screamed louder than thunder. And then something inside her broke free. The glow in her chest spread through her whole body. A wave of light burst from her, wrapping the stage in silver fire. The storm bent away from her like it feared her touch. The nobles gasped. She awakened! That power, it should not exist! The girl raised her glowing hand higher, her voice strong for the first time. You will not break us, not him, not me. The crowd erupted, their chants shaking the walls. The human blinked through the light, his breath heavy. He turned his head looking at the girl. For the first time, he spoke more than one sentence. You found it. Your strength, she nodded, her eyes blazing. Because you showed me how. The storm raged, the machines screamed, but their will did not bend. The tall noble slammed his fist on the railing. His cold voice echoed like venom. End them now. Use everything. The hidden machines unleashed their final strike. A spear of black energy tore from the floor, stabbing at the human's chest. The crowd screamed. The girl shouted his name. The human staggered back, his body convulsing. His arm trembled, shaking violently. The black energy burned through him, trying to drag his hand down. The nobles leaned forward in triumph. At last he will fall. But then he lifted his head. His eyes burned with fire, not defeat. His lips moved slowly, his voice a whisper but strong enough to carry. My hand does not fall. With a final surge of will, he raised his arm higher. The black energy shattered into sparks, the arena exploded in sound. The storm above broke apart. The machines below cracked and burst into flames. The nobles froze, horror on their jeweled faces. The girl stepped forward, glowing brighter than ever. Her voice thundered across the arena. He is my champion. He stood when no one else did. He raised his hand for me, and he never let it fall. Her power burst outward, tearing the noble machines apart, exposing their lies and cheating. The people saw the truth with their own eyes. The crowd no longer cheered. They roared in rebellion. The nobles backed away, their power crumbling. They had lost. On the stage, the storm was gone. The machines were dust. Only two figures remained, their arms still raised. The little alien girl and the human who refused to bow. The announcer's voice shook as he declared, "The contest is decided. The victors are the girl and the human." The arena erupted. Thousands of voices screamed their names, their triumph. History had changed in that moment. The weak were no longer weak. The forgotten were no longer invisible. The girl turned to the human, her small chest heaving with exhaustion. You never let go." The human gave her a tired smile, blood still dripping down his arm. "I told you." Because no one else would. Her eyes filled with tears, not of pain, but of pride. She raised her voice once more so the whole galaxy could hear. "Remember this day? The day a human stood with me and never lowered his hand. The day we changed everything." The crowd roared louder than ever. And so the legend was born. They called it the hand that never fell. It spread from star to star, from world to world, a story of a fragile girl who found her strength, and a human who showed the galaxy that defiance was greater than fear. The nobles vanished into shadows. Their empire shook. But the people never forgot. Because on that day in that arena, one truth was proven for all to see. Sometimes the smallest hand, raised beside the right one, can change the universe forever.